Every economic era has a graveyard, not a dramatic one, not one that makes headlines or triggers emergency press conferences. A quiet graveyard of things that used to make financial sense and no longer do. Things that an entire generation was told were smart purchases, responsible decisions, and necessary investments. Things that are now quietly destroying the wealth of everyone still buying them while the people who stopped are pulling ahead. The shift happens gradually and then all at once. And by the time the mainstream financial media acknowledges it, the damage is already done. Here is what the forensic record of consumer spending, investment returns, and household wealth accumulation in 2026 is actually showing. 12 specific things that made varying degrees of financial sense in previous decades and have crossed a threshold in 2026 where continuing to buy them is no longer a neutral decision. It is an actively wealth-destroying one. Here is what the data actually shows. The first thing is the one sitting in your driveway depreciating at 9% per year, a brand new car purchased with financing in 2026. The average new vehicle price in the United States crossed $48,000 in 2026. The average auto loan interest rate for borrowers with good credit sits between 7 and 9%. The average loan term has stretched to 72 months, 6 full years, as manufacturers and dealers engineered payment structures designed to make a $48,000 depreciating asset feel affordable at $800 per month. Here is the arithmetic that the dealership does not perform for you. A $48,000 vehicle financed at 8% over 72 months costs approximately $60,000 by the time the final payment clears. That vehicle is worth approximately $22,000 at the end of those 72 months. You paid $60,000 for something worth $22,000. The difference of $38,000 is not a loss in the traditional sense. It is the combined cost of depreciation and financing charges extracted from your wealth in increments. Small enough to feel manageable, while being large enough to matter enormously compounded across a lifetime of vehicle purchases. A 3-year-old version of the same vehicle purchased with cash or minimal financing delivers identical transportation at approximately half the total cost. The technology gap between a 2023 and a 2026 vehicle is not worth $38,000 to anyone running honest numbers. The second thing is the one that the telecommunications industry has engineered an entire upgrade cycle to sell you every 24 months. The latest flagship smartphone at full retail price. The premium smartphone market in 2026 has reached a point of genuine functional saturation. The difference between a flagship device released in 2026 and one released in 2023 is marginal for the vast majority of use cases. Camera improvements measured in fractions of stops of dynamic range. Processor speed increases that translate to imperceptible differences in application load times. Design refinements that require a side-by-side comparison to detect. Apple, Samsung, and Google have spent billions of dollars building marketing infrastructure designed to make last year's device feel inadequate. That marketing infrastructure is the product you are actually buying when you purchase a flagship smartphone at full retail price on the 2-year upgrade cycle. The device is the delivery mechanism, the purchase habit is the product. A 3-year-old flagship smartphone performs every function that the 2026 model performs for the vast majority of users. The $1,400 difference between owning it and upgrading is not purchasing better communication. It is purchasing the feeling of currency in a status hierarchy engineered by the manufacturer to require continuous investment. The third thing is the one that felt like responsible planning and is now one of the most consistently documented wealth extraction mechanisms in personal finance. Whole life and universal life insurance policies sold as investment vehicles. The interest rate environment of 2026 has made the investment case for permanent life insurance weaker than at any point in the past 2 decades. The cash value growth rate inside most whole life policies ranges between 2 and 4%. In an environment where short duration treasury bills yield between 4 and 5% with zero counterparty risk and complete liquidity, paying the internal costs, mortality charges, administrative fees, and surrender penalties of a whole life policy to access a 2 to 4% return is a transaction that benefits precisely one party, the insurance company. The independent actuarial research on permanent life insurance as an investment vehicle is not ambiguous in 2026. The net effective return after all internal costs is lower than what is available through direct treasury purchases for almost every policyholder in almost every scenario. Term insurance for genuine death benefit needs, direct treasury purchases for savings. The difference between those two products and a whole life policy is the commission that the whole life policy generates for the advisor who sells it. That commission does not appear on the illustration the advisor shows you, but it is the most important number in the transaction. The fourth thing is the one that an entire generation of investors was told represented sophisticated portfolio management. actively managed mutual funds with expense ratios above 0.5%. The SPIVA data for 2025 is consistent with every year that preceded it. Over a 15-year period, approximately 92% of actively managed large-cap funds underperformed the S&P 500 index. In 2026, with low-cost index funds available at expense ratios of 0.03%, paying 1% annually for active management that underperforms 92% of the time, is not a financial decision. It is a donation to the asset management industry, disguised as a financial decision. The compounding cost of that donation on a $500,000 portfolio over 20 years exceeds $150,000, not in foregone returns, in fees paid for underperformance. The argument for active management has not improved. The data against it has only accumulated further. In 2026, this is no longer a close call. The fifth thing is the one with the most sophisticated and most expensive marketing infrastructure ever built around a grocery purchase: premium organic and specialty branded food products in categories where the nutritional difference from conventional equivalents is not scientifically established. The organic food premium in 2026 ranges from 30 to 300% above conventional equivalents, depending on the category. The Stanford University meta-analysis of organic versus conventional produce found no statistically significant nutritional advantage for the majority of organic categories studied. The Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen list identifies the specific produce categories where pesticide residue genuinely warrants the organic premium. For everything outside that list, the premium is purchasing a marketing narrative rather than a measurable health outcome. The distinction between categories where the organic premium is justified by evidence and categories where it is purely aspirational is worth understanding before the next grocery bill. In 2026, with household budgets under genuine pressure from sustained inflation across every category, paying 300% more for nutritionally identical food is a luxury that the data does not support calling a health investment. The sixth thing is the one that subscription economics perfected and that most households are significantly overpaying for without realizing it: the accumulated subscription portfolio that nobody has audited in the past 12 months. The average household in 2026 carries between 8 and 12 active subscriptions, according to consumer expenditure tracking data. Streaming services, software subscriptions, news paywalls, fitness applications, cloud storage upgrades, meal planning services, meditation apps, and the dozens of other recurring charges that accumulate automatically in the digital economy. The individual charges are engineered to sit below the threshold of conscious financial attention. $12 here, $15 there, $8 for something you signed up for during a free trial 2 years ago and have not used since. Together, they frequently exceed $250 to $350 per month for a typical household. That is $3,000 to $4,200 per year, leaving your account in amounts specifically calibrated to avoid triggering the cancellation decision. A single annual audit of every recurring charge on every credit card and bank account statement is one of the highest return on time activities available in personal finance in 2026. The seventh thing is the one that the extended warranty industry has built a multi-billion-dollar business around selling to people who would be better served by a savings account: extended warranties and protection plans on consumer electronics and appliances. The extended warranty industry generates approximately $40 billion annually in the United States. The profit margins on extended warranties sold at retail point of sale exceed 50% in most categories. Those margins exist because the statistical probability of a claim that exceeds the warranty cost is lower than the price charged implies. The manufacturer already priced the device's failure probability into the original warranty period. The extended warranty is priced to generate profit above that probability, which means, on average and in aggregate, the buyer of an extended warranty pays more than they receive in warranty value. Consumer Reports' analysis of extended warranty value consistently shows that for the majority of product categories, a dedicated repair savings fund earns better returns than the extended warranty premiums paid into it. In 2026, this is not a new finding. It is a consistently documented one that the retail industry has successfully suppressed through the emotional power of the protection frame at the point of sale. The eighth thing is the one that the cable and satellite television industry spent 50 years making feel like a household utility: traditional cable or satellite television packages in markets where streaming alternatives cover the content requirement at a fraction of the cost. The average cable television package in 2026 costs between $100 and $180 per month, including the mandatory equipment rental fees, regional sports surcharges, and broadcast fees that appear on the bill but not in the advertised price. That is $1,200 to $2,160 per year for a content delivery mechanism that the streaming revolution has structurally disrupted beyond recovery. The households that have replaced cable with a curated selection of 2 or 3 streaming services are accessing more content at higher quality for between $30 and $60 per month. The difference between those two numbers, $60 to $120 per month, is the legacy infrastructure premium that cable subscribers are paying to maintain a distribution model that the market has already replaced. In 2026, this is not a future disruption. It is a completed one. The ninth thing is the one that feels like career investment and frequently functions as credential consumption. Professional certifications, continuing education courses, and degree programs that do not have a documented return on investment in your specific field and market. The professional education market in 2026 is a mixture of genuinely valuable credentials that command measurable salary premiums and an enormous volume of certifications, courses, and programs that generate revenue for the institutions offering them without generating measurable returns for the people purchasing them. The distinction requires honest research before the purchase rather than after. What is the median salary differential for someone with this credential versus without it in my specific market? What is the total cost, including time, fees, and foregone income? What is the realistic timeline to recoup that cost? These questions are almost never asked before the enrollment decision because the marketing around professional education is built around aspiration rather than arithmetic. In 2026, with online learning platforms offering genuinely accredited programs at a fraction of traditional institutional costs, paying premium prices for credentials whose market value does not justify the premium is a wealth-destroying decision that feels like self-improvement. The 10th thing is the one that the fast fashion industry engineered and that the sustainable fashion movement has not yet fully disrupted. Clothing purchased at low price points with planned obsolescence built into the product design. The fast fashion model generates revenue through volume and frequency, rather than quality and longevity. A garment purchased at $20 that lasts 8 washes and must be replaced has a higher cost per wear than a garment purchased at $80 that lasts 3 years. The arithmetic of cost per use is almost never performed at the point of purchase because the $20 price point triggers a different psychological accounting system than the $80 one. In 2026, with the resale market for quality secondhand clothing more liquid and accessible than at any point in history through platforms that have genuinely disrupted the new clothing retail model, buying new fast fashion garments is a financial decision that costs more per unit of clothing utility than the alternatives available in the same market. The 11th thing is the one that the financial planning industry has made feel like responsible adulting. Financial advisory services paid for through asset-based fees on portfolios below the threshold, where genuine personalized advice justifies the cost. For portfolios below approximately $250,000, the 1% asset-based advisory fee generates $5 of revenue per year for every $500 of portfolio value. The services that fee purchases at that portfolio size rarely justify the cost when compared to the combination of low-cost index funds, free tax optimization tools, and online financial planning resources that have become genuinely sophisticated in 2026. Robo-advisory services offering automated rebalancing, tax loss harvesting, and diversified index portfolios at fees below 0.3%. have made the 1% human advisory model genuinely difficult to justify for standard investment management at smaller portfolio sizes. The scenarios where human financial advice genuinely earns its fee, complex tax situations, estate planning, business sale transactions, major life transitions, are specific and identifiable. Standard investment management for a portfolio below $250,000 is not one of them in 2026. The 12th thing is the one with the most powerful social reinforcement system ever assembled around a consumer behavior. Dining and entertainment experiences purchased on credit that carries a balance. The restaurant industry in 2026 operates in an environment where the average meal for two at a mid-range restaurant in a major city costs between $80 and $120, including a standard tip. The average American household dines out approximately 5 times per week, according to National Restaurant Association data. At those numbers, restaurant spending alone can consume between $400 and $600 per month of household income. When that spending is placed on a credit card that carries a revolving balance at 20 to 24% annual interest, the actual cost of each meal includes a financing surcharge that is never visible on the menu. A $100 dinner placed on a credit card carrying a balance and paid off over 6 months at 22% interest costs approximately $111. The additional $11 purchased nothing except the ability to eat the meal before the money to pay for it existed. Across a household that consistently carries a credit card balance and consistently dines out at the frequency that the data suggests is typical, the annual financing surcharge on lifestyle spending can exceed $500 to $1,000. Paid for nothing. Accumulated invisibly. compounding alongside every other item on this list. Now here is what connects all 12 of these things. They are not 12 separate financial decisions. They are one financial behavior operating through 12 different product categories simultaneously. The behavior is this: paying a premium for the feeling of a purchase rather than the function of it. The new car premium purchases the feeling of newness, not better transportation. The flagship smartphone premium purchases the feeling of currency, not better communication. The whole life policy premium purchases the feeling of comprehensive planning, not better returns. The active fund premium purchases the feeling of sophisticated management, not better performance. The organic premium purchases the feeling of health consciousness, not measurably better nutrition. The subscription accumulation purchases the feeling of access, not the actual use of that access. The extended warranty purchases the feeling of protection, not statistically justified coverage. The cable package purchases the feeling of completeness, not content unavailable elsewhere. The credential, without ROI analysis, purchases the feeling of advancement, not documented career progress. The fast fashion purchase purchases the feeling of newness, not cost-effective clothing utility. The advisory fee purchases the feeling of professional guidance, not demonstrably better investment outcomes. The finance dining experience purchases the feeling of abundance, not an affordable meal. In every case, the feeling is real. The premium paid for that feeling is not justified by the financial return on the purchase. And in 2026 specifically, with interest rates elevated, inflation having permanently reset household cost structures, and the gap between what productive assets return and what lifestyle premiums cost having widened to levels not seen in decades, continuing to pay these premiums is not a neutral decision. It is the decision that separates the households that will build wealth in the next decade from the ones that will wonder why the gap keeps widening despite working just as hard as everyone else. The graveyard of things that no longer make financial sense grows every economic era. The people who recognize which things have crossed the threshold before everyone else are the ones who redirect that capital into things that compound instead of things that evaporate. That redirection, made consistently across 12 spending categories, compounded across the next decade, is not a small adjustment. It is the entire difference. Subscribe, because the patterns are accelerating and the next lesson from history is already in motion.